In this video, I'm going to crunch the numbers so that you can follow along using the best data I could find in order to reveal just how filthy it is to plug your EV into that coal-fired EV recharger on the wall of your home overnight in Australia. Certainly this is the cheapest way to charge an EV, and for many it is the most convenient. Also, you're just sucking on that sweet, sweet coal-fired, dead dinosaur baseload power, aren't you? But it's also roughly equivalent to running a filthy diesel dual-cab ute in terms of, CO2. And I'm going to prove this to you using facts. I know this only matters if you live in a world which is constrained by reality, which is why I so love EV fanboys, those delightful individuals for whom EVs are not merely just a different kind of transportation, an alternative powertrain or something, but they're also functionally a religion, which makes these people insufferable. People like that are really going to hate this kind of video, which of course is why they click on it. It seems to me that you EV fanboys in particular just can't be happy. Unless, of course, you're also outraged. I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au. New cars cheap, but Australia only. Website. Card. Now, in yesterday's video on MG unexpectedly gutting the price of its electric MG4, I did mention that if you are a typical working stiff with an EV in Australia and you come home after the plant whistle blows and plug in overnight and then do it all over again on the morrow, charging your planet-saving chariot of electric self-abuse using the grid running on baseload power is roughly as filthy as driving a diesel dual-cab ute. That was certainly my claim, and I'm standing by it, dude. Predictably, one of you reached out helpfully with the following can of worms opening quote-unquote information. Some facts might help rather than sarcasm. In 2023, the emissions intensity from electricity generation in Australia amounted to around 549 grams of carbon dioxide equivalent per kilowatt hour. This will keep decreasing. 1 litre of petrol releases about 2.3 kilos of CO2. Butterwang 77 there. Bwang. Excellent name for a Chinese rapper now that I think about it. Bwang got a booty like pow, pow, pow. Dude. Bwang apparently clicked on the internets and got his data from Statista. I got mine from a reputable source. So the numbers are a bit different. Also, Bwang, I don't know how helpful it is actually to compare 549 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour of electricity with the stoichiometric value from burning 1 litre of petrol, but challenge accepted, Bwang. If you want to see how plugging your EV in overnight is roughly the same as running this filthy CO2 belching diesel ute in Australia, grab your abacus and slip on some trousers, dude, for a change, because we're going to run the numbers next. And I can't have you sitting there disrespecting Isaac Newton and La Principia like that, flapping indiscriminately in the breeze. This video is sponsored by Osight. Osight's September sale event is now on until Friday, the 27th at midnight. And here are the specials. Perrin 3 is easy to hold over long distance walks at night thanks to the 90-degree beam, and it morphs into a head torch with the supplied elastic rig. Great for playing doctor or, I guess, changing a tyre in the boonies. Baton Turbo is tiny but also powerful. Awesome EDC torch. It comes with a rechargeable 18350 battery, but in a pinch you can also slip in a single-use CR123A. It's got half a K of range in turbo mode too. Arcfeld Ultra is slimline, so it goes in the pocket easy, and you get a torch plus a UV light and a laser pointer, and it's made of this special alloy that's harder than 6061 and stronger than TA2 titanium. So good luck killing it. The Sphere looks like a toy, but it's absolutely not. It's great for camping and a real winner with the kids, especially in a blackout. It's got app control, so you just Bluetooth it to your phone, and there's like a billion different brightnesses and colour combination modes to choose from, and it's a lot tougher than it looks. Seeker 4 Pro is great for camping, comfortable to hold and super bright on turbo mode. 4,600 lumens, and it's got the new generation holster that accepts the standard Osight magnetic charger as well as USB-C. And finally, the Osight, an aftermarket sight for the licensed shooters out there. Essentially, it sits on the top of your firearm and it paints a 3-minute of arc dot wherever you zero it. It's inductively charged and it kind of lasts forever, and you can make easy windage and elevation adjustments. It's compatible with most major brands with the right adapter plate. I'll put a link in the description plus a code in case you missed the sale, and if you click that card just up there, it'll take you to a recent report I did on my favourite Olights and how you can choose the right one for your particular application, because otherwise there's hundreds to wade through, aren't there? Links to all the torches just mentioned in the description, and thanks to Osight for sponsoring this video. Hopefully that sponsored message gave you sufficient time to find some suitably modest trousers for a change. So, in order to do this, I started at the Australian Government Clean Energy Regulator, which has quite a helpful page called Electricity Sector Emissions and Generation Data 2022-23. What a mouthful. We pay them to know this stuff and publish it after all, so might as well use it. Down at the bottom of that page, you're going to find two very meaningful numbers. Total energy production, which was 218 million megawatt hours, and the total emissions, which were 141 million tonnes of CO2 equivalent. Now, to get this next bit right, you have to convert megawatt hours to kilowatt hours, and you also have to convert tonnes to grams by multiplying by 1,000 and then by multiplying the other one by 1 million, respectively. And then you divide one by the other in the right order, and if you do that without tripping over your junk, which should be, neatly packed away by now, 647 grams per kilowatt hour just falls out in your lap so neatly. That's pretty clearly not the 549 quoted by B. Wang a little earlier. Still, this is the official number insofar as I can tell, and I would argue that 647 is still being entirely generous to coal, because it doesn't include the so-called fugitive emissions from all of those coal mines, which endlessly fart methane gas up into the atmosphere. Still, it's not very representative of A, the eastern seaboard either, now that I think about it, where most of our EVs actually are domiciled, and B, not representative of charging at night either, because I think we could all agree there's no grid contribution from solar at night.
What does the future look like? And the future in many ways can be here right now, be very clear, is solar panels on the roof charging your vehicle for free overnight. That's what it looks like.
Well, nearly all of us can agree, I suppose. Some people, of course, remain fairly special, don't they? 647 grams per kilowatt hour. That includes Tasmania, which is about 90% hydro, wind and solar, and South Oz as well, which has no coal. It's about 50% gas and 45% solar and wind. Pretty clearly, those two joints are skewing the eastern seaboard average ever so slightly. New South Wales, where most EVs are located, is about 70% coal and gas for electricity. Queensland is about 80%, and Vicwegia is about 60% hydrocarbon powered. I'm ballparking it a bit here, okay, but I'm going to make a 12% adjustment to that 647 average grams per kilowatt hour, just to make it more representative to most EVs in the nation, which would be located in Sydney, Brisbane or Melbourne pretty clearly. That's probably a little bit of a heavy-handed adjustment for Melbourne and a bit light for Brisbane, but pretty close for Sydney. So if you put it in a blender, it works out okay. That makes it 735 grams per kilowatt hour in the three big capital cities, like for the eastern seaboard. Rooftop solar has become very popular and it's still growing. And I am such a huge fan. It's much more effective as a climate change countermeasure compared with buying an EV. More info at autoexpert.com.au/solar. We've got some solutions there. You just fill in the form. There's no obligation, including a really good modular storage battery from SunGrow that you can retrofit to existing solar array type systems that don't have a storage battery. These batteries are safe and they've got standards compliance coming out of their wazoo, metaphorically. autoexpert.com.au/solar. It's not a gimmick and there's no hard sell, just a genuine offer if you're interested. Now, according to the Clean Energy Council in April this year, rooftop solar accounted for 11.2% of the nation's electricity supply, which is awesome. But everyone, except the Prime Minister perhaps, can see that rooftop solar does not function at night, right? Therefore, those other sources of electricity, mainly coal and gas, like the reliable 24/7 ones, they have to swell up proportionally to compensate for darkness when solar doesn't work, don't they? By about 11.2%, coincidentally, which means we're going to be up to 828 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour if you charge your EV in one of our big three cities overnight. And if you bought the world's most popular EV, because, you know, it's the most popular one, the Tesla Model Y, and I'm going to go with the performance variant on this analysis, like that's the one that I would buy if it was gun at your head, pick a Tesla or certain death, then according to EV Database, it's going to deliver me a range in the real world of 415 kilometres. But they're over in Europe, so that spec is for Europe, and we're here in Australia. Their mild use case is 23 degrees C and with no aircon. I'm going to make a 10% adjustment to that because it's basically hotter than two rats screwing in a mohair sock here, isn't it? Often enough. That's 374 kilometres from the 75 kilowatt hour battery in Australia. Now, according to the ADAC, the engineering luminaries in Germany, the Tesla Model 3 long range, which they tested, had an AC charging efficiency of roughly 75%. That's from AC charging, like out of the wall at home, which wastes a fair bit of energy, mainly in the conversion to DC. This is absolutely how you are going to charge overnight at home, whether you have a wall box or whether you just plug the little charger that comes with the car into a GPO. It's quite a bit wasteful doing that. I'm ballparking it, right? Because the ADAC didn't have a figure for the Model Y that I could locate quickly. I'm assuming it's similar to the Model 3 because they come out of the same shop, basically. So that means to charge a 75 kilowatt hour battery, you're going to need 100 kilowatt hours out of the charger, and 25 kilowatt hours of that, is going to convect away as waste heat. This is quite significant, but it's not terrible in the context of industrial processes. It's just second law of thermodynamics, right? 100 kilowatt hours divided by 374 kilometres of actual real-world Australian range is 0.267 kilowatt hours of energy per kilometre. So we take our 828 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour for overnight electricity in the big cities, and we multiply it by the Model Y's energy consumption of 0.267 kilowatt hours per kilometre, and we get, drum roll please, 221 grams of CO2 per kilometre. Bare knuckle physics is so freaking intolerant of the feelings of electric utopians because they all so want it to be zero emissions, right? That's what they've been told. That's what they want to believe. A Toyota Hilux SR5 48 Volta is 7.2 litres per 100 Ks, okay, on the official combined cycle consumption test. That's 189 grams of CO2 per kilometre. But I fear we're going to need to add about 20% to that because one does drive always in the real world, and that standard is not that realistic either. So 189 times 1.2 is 227 grams of CO2 per kilometre. So 221 for the Model Y sucking overnight electrons from the grid versus 227 for the Hilux running on dino juice. Given the amount of ballparking in both of these cases, that's a dead heat, dude. If you think you're being somehow virtuous, owning one of these big EVs and plugging it in overnight, you probably should have paid more attention at school. Here's another thought, okay? The new Hyundai Santa Fe hybrid does everything a Model Y does and more. More like driving easily from A to B on the open road without having to obsess about charging. Plus, it's almost guaranteed to be more reliable, better built, better at towing. It's going to accommodate more people and their stuff and certainly going to depreciate less, etc. Santa Fe hybrid, right? 5.6 litres per 100 Ks. That's 128 grams per kilometre in the real world, with an adjustment of 20% makes it 154 grams per kilometre versus 221 for the Model Y if you charge up overnight at home. That's 30% less CO2 from the hybrid Santa Fe running gasoline than the fully electric Model Y plugged into the wall overnight in Australia. If you want to take effective climate action down here, buy a hybrid, dude, and with the money you save over an EV, install rooftop solar and a frickin' battery. This is why hybrid sales are booming right now in Australia. People are not stupid. Hybrid sales are up 96% year on year. Plug-in hybrid sales up 127%. Straight petrol down 10%. Diesel up 6%. Battery EVs pretty stagnant, up just 1.4%. Hybrids are killing it, and that is happening for a reason. Everyone who's studied can tell that hybrids do the job, whereas EVs are simply unsuitable for the vast majority of Australian motorists.